Welcome to the listeners of TALRadio English. We bring in global CXOs to share the journey to success. Our guest today is Manohar Shenoy, Executive Director at Clean the World Foundation. Manohar is an international development aid worker with several years of experience in international relief and development in Afghanistan, Ethiopia, India, Indonesia, and several African countries. And he has a lot of support experience in a host of other countries, including Bangladesh, Nepal, Yemen, Lebanon, West Bank, and Gaza. As a leader, he enables political, social, environmental, and economic transformation through models that are replicable, scalable, and sustainable, with the potential to be growth engines for BOP populations by leveraging people, processes, and technologies. Manohar has been recognized for strong innovation, transformative growth leadership, and for establishing, growing, and managing top performing teams. Manohar has developed theories of change, long range strategic plans, and creates innovative models for businesses' success. His domain experience in several verticals such as public health, nutrition, livelihoods, emergencies, accountabilities, and climate change has been very instrumental in bringing about a lot of socio-economic changes in the society. He believes in forming strategic alliances towards mutually beneficial goals and develop consortia and strategic alliances for optimal performance. Manohar, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Akshay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. As we get started, Manohar, can you brief us about the Clean the World Foundation and when it has been established and a little bit history about it?
Yeah, Clean the World Foundation started in 2009. It was started by a person who is still our CEO. His name is Sean Seipler. Sean used to work with the information technology sector, and he used to travel quite a lot within the United States, spending more than 150 nights in different hotels. And during one of his stays, he had this question of what happens to the soap that the guests use in the hotel rooms, part of the soap that's been discarded. So he went down to the desk in the night and he asked, what happens to this, this partially used soap? And they told him that it's discarded. It's just thrown away and it goes into landfills. And this got Sean thinking, and he did a quick calculation to see how many hotels are there in the United States, how many rooms are there, and potentially how much of soap is, eventually ending up in landfills. And he looked at this as an opportunity to see whether the soap can somehow be averted from the landfills on the one hand, but also be recycled and used for public health purposes. So that was really the start of Clean the World Foundation. So what Sean did was he quit his job and he started things like all good things start in a garage. He and a couple of friends, what they did was they started collecting used soap from the hotels and started cleaning them up. And initially, this was a very rudimentary way of doing it. But yeah, they were cooking the soap and then they were making noodles out of it and making fresh bars of soap, and then getting this together and sending it off to countries like Haiti, etc., and combining that with hygiene education programs. And that is really, the genesis of Clean the World Foundation. And that is what has been so remarkable. It started with a few hotels, and then it has grown into a kind of a movement where in the United States alone, there are about 50,000 hotels. So, you can guess how many, there are millions of rooms that are there. So we are currently reaching about 8,000 hotels and many different brands within the hospitality sector. And they are giving us their used soap. They're also giving us their used shampoo bottles, etc. And we use that, we take that into our warehouses in Orlando as well as in Las Vegas. We recycle that, we pack it, and we give it to partners. And they send it off to countries where there are emergencies, especially around, waterborne diseases. And this helps in averting diarrheal diseases and pneumonia. So that has been the humble beginnings. We started off in 2009 in a garage, and now it has grown to close to about 100 employees. And between 2009 and now, we have reached about 127 countries with our products.
That's a huge number, and does seem to be matching with your mission and vision. Do you have anything else to add on to that?
Well, yes. When we started off, our mission really was to collect soap from the hospitality industry and recycle it and send that off to developing countries so that we can, avert specifically diarrhea as well as pneumonia. Um, and as you know, nearly 500,000 children die every year from diarrheal diseases, and close to 1 million children die from pneumonia as well as diarrheal diseases globally. So we are making a contribution in trying to avert these morbidities as well as mortalities. So our mission is really to recycle soap, and our larger vision is to reduce morbidities and mortalities in children below the age of 5.
Right. Clean the World Foundation is also helping in bring a change the history by improving the hygiene opportunities for children and families around the world. What are the most innovative programs that CTW has taken up so far?
Well, at the moment, what we have done is a large part of our focus has been really around hand washing and hygiene in schools as well as in health centers, and trying to limit infections in the schools by setting up hand washing stations on the one hand, and providing soap in schools, as well as menstrual hygiene programs in schools, so that, on the one hand, we are able to address issues related to diarrheal diseases and reducing pneumonia, and on the other hand, making sure that children don't drop out of school, and also making sure that children are given education around hand washing and hygiene, and that they're able to take that back home, and they're able to have these conversations with their parents as well as with other people who live in their houses. And as for the girl child, when she enters menarche, just providing education around menstrual hygiene and providing sanitary napkins, etc., so that she doesn't drop out of school when she enters menarche, and that, we create a more enabling environment in the schools. So we started out in Haiti, our program, which is, we have our office in Orlando, and so the closest place where we really have, an easy access is Haiti. And our program started at the time when there was the earthquake in Haiti. So we moved soap over there. But after most of the people left, we continued to remain in Haiti, providing soap, providing, other hygiene-related material, but also providing education, as well as providing education around menstrual hygiene and making sure that children do not drop out of school.
Right. Continuing the support is so very important. And you did talk about several hospitality partners. How are they supporting you?
Well, many of the hospitality partners, for example, we have got a large number of chains like the Marriotts, the Hyatts, the Hiltons, Caesars Entertainment, IHG, which is Holiday Inn, etc. The Windham, the Walt Disney Resorts. They all basically provide us with the soap and the shampoo, but they also provide us with a small cost for picking up, a small amount of money for picking up the soap from their hotel rooms on the one hand. On the other hand, their employees, basically people who work in the rooms and who clean the rooms, are very much involved in the whole process of really working with us. They collect the soap, they put these into garbage bins, and we go and we collect these garbage bins. So the hospitality industry, each one of the hotels, they have been informed that, the soap needs to be given to us. So their employees are very much engaged in the process on the one hand. On the other hand, they give us a small amount of money for the soap that is collected from each room, from each one of the hotels that we're working in. And given that we're working in about 8,000 hotels, and I don't know, you could multiply that by about 1,000 rooms or so. That is the number of hotel rooms that we are basically collecting soap from and discarded shampoo, and that goes into garbage, bins, and those bins are then sent to our warehouses in Orlando as well as in Las Vegas. So on the one hand, there is the employees from the hotel and the hospitality sector themselves who are very much engaged in the process, and they do understand that this is a good cause. One is that the soap actually goes to different countries where there is a need. On the other hand, the soap does not get diverted into the landfills, so it makes the hotel and the hospitality industry a whole lot more green. So there is dual benefits. And then the employees also feel that they're really involved in this whole process. So they're very enthusiastic about that. So we're getting the whole hospitality industry involved in this green movement, but they're also involved in the global health process in developing countries and averting deaths.
Yeah, that's a very involving process. Really appreciating in terms of like understanding the psyche of the people who are all supporting each and everybody out there, knowingly or unknowingly. But this also involves a lot of logistics associated with it, and there is a lot of must be an elaborate recycling process, the soap recycling process, right? Would you want to
Right.
share something about it?
So one is we have partnered with the United Parcel Service. So what they do is they have got a carbon neutral trucks, and we basically use them to move most of our soap as well as discarded soap as well as shampoos. So what we are doing is we're working with the private sector as well as we have got the logistics arm where we have got UPS that is supporting us. So they move it to our warehouses. We have purchased some of the machinery, we made some investments. And this is really Sean Seipler, when he started, this was his vision. I mentioned that he started this out of a garage. And then as we grew, we were able to invest in machinery, and that machinery we are able to, the discarded soap is put into the machinery, and that is turned into noodles. It's cooked over there, it's turned into noodles, and then it is made into small bars of soap. And we have got external auditors who come in and look at the quality of soap. So SGS, they come in and they kind of audit it, and they tell us that this meets international standards. So it's not like we're giving cheap soap away. This is really high quality soap that we are giving to people in countries like Haiti, the Dominican Republic, or Uganda, or Tanzania, or Kenya, or what have you. Many of these developing countries, including in India, and where you have got emergencies. And right now we are looking at Ukraine and the Ukraine response. So yes, there's a lot of logistics that's involved. Right now we are also entering into partnership with Amazon, who are supporting us in this process. So we're working with Amazon both in the United States as well as in Europe, especially for the Ukraine response. So as you did mention, there's quite a bit of logistics that's involved. One is the employees themselves at the hotel end, then our employees, picking up the stuff, working with UPS, picking up the stuff, getting it to the warehouse, recycling the soap, keeping it in our warehouses, stacking it up over there. And then our partners who come and then pick it up. So we have got a number of NGO partners who work with us. They come and they pick this up, and then they transport it overseas. So that is kind of what the logistics chain looks like.
That's a very interesting. I think that's a very elaborative process, I would rather say, and very involving. Thanks for doing that. We'd also like to hear more about the drive that you have, which is basically helping you carry on the mantle and then step in forward for the Clean the World Foundation. What has been the most important drive that you have got that you feel is really motivating you to steer this ahead and take it to the next level?
Yeah, thanks, Akshay, for that question. I joined Clean the World Foundation in November of last year. And as you mentioned in the beginning, I've been working for many years in international development, specifically in global health and nutrition and water sanitation and hygiene in different parts of the world. And I do know that hygiene is really very important, but so is water and so is sanitation. And these are becoming really very, very critical, um, especially when you look at the fact that there's a great amount of urbanization that is taking place on the one hand globally, and on the other hand is climate change also that's happening. So while hygiene and soap is quite important, I think it's extremely important, and the fact that we're working with the private sector is something that is extraordinarily innovative. Um, I think that also the fact that we are living in a world where our resources are shrinking, our natural resources, water. Many of the countries are becoming water stressed. We are having challenges with sanitation, and both lack of water as well as problems with sanitation is driving the burden of global disease, and we are going to be seeing many more emerging diseases, including pandemics. If you look at the whole COVID pandemic, has resulted potentially from a sanitation problem in China. And I think that we need to be pandemic prepared, and we need to really look at water. We need to look at sanitation also from a global perspective. And these are difficult problems. These are complex problems. These are what are called wicked problems. And that is what drives me, because I think that there's a great urgency around the need to address water and sanitation and hygiene more holistically, and not look at hygiene only separately. And I think that that is what really drives me, and that is what I'm looking at right now as part of a strategy, and really looking at water sanitation and hygiene from a more holistic perspective.
You have also been developing a lot of theories of change and practicing and implementing long range strategic plans and involved with several innovative models. We would like to know more experience of yours on this.
Well, right now, what I am in the process of actually developing a global strategy which really looks at water, it looks at sanitation, and it looks at hygiene. But it also looks at the participation of the private sector, which has really not been drawn into these developmental processes as much as they should perhaps be, because there is the whole part of corporate social responsibility. If you really look at the water, for every 100 liters of water, about 80 liters of water is actually used for agriculture and for food. About 15 liters is used by industry for manufacturing and other processes, and it's only 5% that's actually used at the household level for consumption. So we have got big challenges around agriculture as well as around industry, and industry actually using up a lot of this drinking water resource. And this is a resource that belongs to everybody. It belongs to all the people on the planet, and we have to use it very wisely. So we are really looking at these theories of change. What is it that we need to do so that this shrinking but shared resource is used in a more equitable manner? And we have identified, in our initial processes, some of the things that we have looked at is really, even though the water resources are shrinking, uh, a major issue is poor management of water resources globally. That is a really a very, very big challenge. So governance, we have kind of identified that as a very major issue in our ability to achieve SDG 6, which is around water sanitation and hygiene. And the other is financing for water, because right now the SDG 6 says that it requires at least 1% of the GDP for us, global GDP, to address all the problems around water sanitation and hygiene by 2030. And that that would perhaps translate to about $200 billion. And not even $20 billion have been committed to water sanitation and hygiene for SDG 6. So there is a huge gap around financing. And that we see as the second challenge around, our addressing SDG 6. So one is governance and poor governance. Two is financing. Three is poor infrastructure. And fourth is really not empowering communities so that they have greater control over natural resources. So that really, these four elements really need to come together. And these are going to be components in our theory of change that if we really look at how we can engage with this and make changes in these four elements and have a four-pronged strategy, we believe that we can begin to start making an impact on SDG 6, which is around water sanitation and hygiene.
Talking about financing, which is very key for any nonprofit organization to move in and support the required individuals of the society, what has been the strategy at Clean the World Foundation to get donations for development of your programs?
So at the moment, we have been very reliant on receiving funding from private sources and from the private sector. But we have also been lucky in receiving both federal grants. For example, the CDC has been funding us. We have also been receiving funding from the state governments over here, as well as from the counties. And currently, just because COVID happened, in 2020, what happened as a result of that was many of our programs, we had to kind of curtail them. And much of our efforts were diverted to the United States itself and domestic programs. And that is the reason why we had been working largely with the CDC and the CDC Foundation over here in the US. But we have also been working with the counties in the US to really address hygiene and the COVID pandemic. So that is where we have been getting a lot of funding from. And now we are going to be casting our net wider to really bring in private sector financing. We are going to be looking at blended finance, where we would be looking at financing that is coming from federal sources, but they're also coming in from the private sector sources. We are also going to be looking at multilateral agencies that would be putting money into the sector along with the government. And that I believe that is the only way by which we will be able to get optimal amounts of funds to carry not just a project, but really have a program which is multi-year and that goes all the way up to 2030. So that is the effort right now in terms of the strategy and the long range strategic plan that we're developing as to how we can bring funding from different sources, including blended finance, where government puts in money. You get bilateral aid money, you get multilateral aid money, and you get money from the private sector going in together, and then also bringing in the banking sector to see whether the banking sector and venture funds also coming in to really support the water sanitation and hygiene sector as such. And a part of it might really be looking at user fees and things like that.
Right. All of these are like bringing a change in the society, and there are a lot of programs like wash infrastructure and education programs and all. How do you see that these programs have been successful? To what extent in the society to bring a change?
Well, we had some fairly good successes. It's not all gloom and doom. If you really look at where we were 20 years ago or 25 years ago, right now, about 70% of the globe, 65 to 70% of the globe is getting clean water at the household level. We're getting piped water. But that still means that 30% of the population, where we're talking about 8 billion people, 30%, which is about 2.4 billion people, are not having access to clean water. They're not having access to clean water at the household level. Women have to travel very long distances to access water. And often the quality of water is not very good. And that drives, the burden of disease. So while there have been many, many successes, there are still some very significant challenges ahead from a global perspective. There are some countries, and again, there are some countries that have had tremendous successes, and there are some countries, especially if you look at sub-Saharan Africa and you look at parts of South Asia, yeah, and some parts of Latin America, you will see that there are some very significant challenges, and it's going to take a lot of effort for us to be able to really address some of those problems.
You brought up a very important point about women, and I think Clean the World Foundation has a lot of programs which are nurturing women to become leaders and change agents. Any highlights in terms of what has been the key achievements of the program from the team?
Yeah, I think that our programs, when I came on board, they reduced and they had to be curtailed because of COVID. But certainly placing women at the heart of everything that we do and building their capacities, empowering them, and allowing them to have the opportunity to make choices on what is best for them and for their households is something that would be driving our programs. We have had quite a bit of success, with our programs in Uganda, for example, when we are looking at education in schools, as well as menstrual hygiene education. We have had quite a bit of programs in really placing women at the heart of those programs. It's been the same in Haiti as well. Really, our focus has been on the girl child. It has been on women, and we've had quite a bit of success. It's also true in the Rohingya crisis that we've had in Bangladesh, where we have worked with our partners, that we have really tried to take, our hygiene products to women, as well as access to water, really empowering women so that they have access to hygiene products as well as access to water. And that has been successful. I mean, that is really at the heart of what we wish to do. And everything else is creating an enabling environment around that. So whether it is looking at government, it's looking at local government, or it is looking at NGO partners, all of them will work towards supporting women at the household level as well as at the community level. And that is where we believe that both the leadership of women is going to become very important, as well as the equity that we're talking about is going to become very important, and women have a much larger voice in that equity.
Right. I mean, having programs is so very essential. In addition to that, also educating the people about several programs and the benefits out of it is very important. And you have one such program is a wash station program. How do you actually educate people about such programs?
Well, the wash station programs, where some of them are going on in the Dominican Republic, and we do have some programs going on over here within the United States. We actually have our staff, and our community health workers go out to the field and go out to the schools where we have set up these wash stations. And we work with the teachers in the schools, and we educate the teachers. And then we have demonstrations for children and for the teachers on how the wash stations basically are to be used, how they are to be maintained, how we use soap, how we wash hands, etc. These are things that we impart to the teachers. We have got our own modules, our training modules, and we teach teachers, we teach parents as well, and we teach the students. For our programs that are in the United States, over here, we do have demonstration programs. For example, we're working in Las Vegas, we're working in Orlando, we're working in Colorado, and we're going to be working in Seattle with people who are experiencing homelessness. So we have got these communication programs. We bring people together, we bring partners together, and we have got county officials who come together, and we have got these demonstration programs for them. And we, show people what is the best way by which they can really be addressing hygiene for themselves and wherever they are actually living, and give them hygiene products so that they can practice with it. but we also give them access to, these hygiene stations. These hygiene stations are placed in different parts of the city, and people who are experiencing homelessness can actually go and begin to access them.
One interesting project that I see is a drop by drop project. Who has initiated the project and what are the advantages?
Well, the drop by drop project is around water stewardship. And this has been initiated by SANS. So it's been initiated by the hospitality industry. And what they have done is we are grant managers over there. So what we do is we give out grants to some of the research institutions and partners that are working with us. And they work with the communities where the hospitality industry is located in the Southeast Asia. This is basically in Macau. It's actually not a very big program. It's a small program, but it is really training communities on water conservation in areas that surround where we have got the hotels.
One last question, Manohar. We have all been through the pandemic situation. How did Clean the World Foundation safeguard people in such a situation?
I think that when the pandemic actually happened, a lot of things actually closed down. That was number one, because as you know, that globally there were lockdowns all over the place, and that disrupted programs, but that was also, following global guidelines, that was following WHO guidelines. And in the United States, it was following CDC guidelines. So our offices had to shut down and many people had to work from home. The other thing that did happen was the hospitality industry also closed down. So a lot of people stopped traveling. It had a double, effect on us. One is the hospitality industry closed down, which meant that, the discarded soap that we were reliant on in the past was not easily forthcoming. So we had challenges on that front. But at the same time, it's paradoxical that soap was actually really required, but that was not forthcoming just because the hospitality industry closed down. So those were challenges that we faced. But at the workplace itself, we really had to close down, and we had to let people come into the office on a need basis. So as whatever soap was coming into our warehouses, those staff who were required to be there to recycle the soap, they continued to remain there. But those who were doing the back office work were able to do it because we had technology and we were able to work from home. And that is how we continued with our operations. We didn't shut anything down. We didn't lay off staff. We continued with our operations, but our operations definitely, took a dip. The good news is it has really picked up again. It has picked up with quite a bit of vigor. And we are really looking at this year and the coming years with a great deal of optimism. And I can tell you that a lot of people have started approaching us to start getting this program up and to a much larger scale again. So we are very, very optimistic about the future and about the models that we're actually setting in place. On the one hand, really working with the private sector and working with the hospitality industry, but expanding that to look at other sectors within the private sector as well. For example, IT, textiles, and what have you, the agriculture sector as well. And working with the federal government, working with the State Department, working with bilaterals, working with multilaterals, and working with different governments across the world.
That's so very detailed. Actually, that's where I was also trying to understand any future plans that you would like to share with our listeners.
Well, yeah, certainly. I think that, as you know, there's a great need in South Asia. We certainly are looking at sometime in the near future, especially with the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and the Jal Se Nal program and the Clean Ganga program, etc. it would make a lot of sense for us to actually have a presence in India. India also has a very large hospitality industry. India also has got a very large private sector. So does Bangladesh, Nepal, uh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. Maldives has got a different set of problems. And Afghanistan really looking at it from a humanitarian response and emergency situation. I think we are looking at how we can be in South Asia. We are also looking at sub-Saharan Africa. We are looking at how we can be in countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Mozambique, and Uganda, and other countries where you have emergencies like CAR, DRC, South Sudan, parts of Darfur, Chad, Mali, Haiti in the Latin American countries, the Caribbean, perhaps in Colombia and Venezuela, etc. So we do have plans, considerable plans for expansion. And we do have plans of really looking at how we can bring the private sector into this and how we can bring other partners and other players into the whole process.
Thank you, Manohar. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks a lot for being with us today.
It's been a great pleasure for me as well. Thank you.